Yeah, no, absolutely. Grew up in South Texas, 30 miles from McAllen on a cattle ranch. I am definitely the black sheep of my family, being out here in the movie business in Hollywood. My family, or my old man's a retired criminal defense lawyer. My brother's a personal injury lawyer. My sister-in-law's a judge. You name it. It was quite a shock to my family when I told them after I had graduated from law school that I was going to move out to Hollywood and get in the movie business.
Yeah, I can't imagine. So what was it like? Tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up in such a cool South Texas family. And not only were you truly a really good cowboy, but you were also a very high level high school athlete. So tell us a little bit about what it was like. Some of the lessons you maybe learned growing up in South Texas as both a cowboy and a badass athlete.
Thank you for saying that, Brian. I don't know if I was a badass athlete, but it was great. Growing up on the ranch, it's funny when you grow up on a ranch. I don't think you appreciate it. I think you want to move to a big city and work in that environment. And I feel like now, as I get older, certainly I want to move back to the ranch. It's like, take me back to the ranch. But that was great. Listen, I had great parents. I feel like they taught us to have a strong moral compass and to be good people. And I had an incredible brother and sister. I'm the youngest of three. My brother was very competitive, and I think he always taught me to be better than him, which I loved. Not out of competition, but like, hey, man, if I'm an all-district football player, you need to be all-state. And that always resonated with me and stuck with me. And my brother was really supportive to this day, and he still is, and he's a good man. But growing up obviously on a cattle ranch out in the middle of the country, I had to drive 30 miles back and forth to school every day. And at one point my parents during my freshman year sent me off to military school, a school called Texas Military Institute, which is great, where I learned a lot of discipline and met some wonderful people and colleagues. They're still friends of mine to this day. And it was a 2A school. It was a private school outside of San Antonio. And I told my old man, I was like, I always wanted to play college football. And I said, I'm never going to be able to play college football if you keep me at this school. So he moved me back down and threw me in the fray of 5A football, public school, Edinburgh North. It was a new school at the time. And I started as a quarterback. I was a quarterback since I played for a little school in elementary called Brewster School, which was a great little rural school. And the coach was like, you're too good an athlete. I'm not trying to pat myself on the shoulder, but he was like, I want to put you on the football field when you're a sophomore. And so he put me on the other side of the football. He's like, you understand quarterbacks, so I'm going to make you a free safety. So that's how I became a free safety. And then eventually, the great irony of this whole story is that my dreams of playing college football were crushed when the fifth game of my senior year on a kickoff, I was running down the other tackle a guy, and two guys took my knee out, and that was it. So yeah. I think it was honestly probably a godsend for me personally, that just in terms of my personal trajectory and career. But
isn't that funny how that works, Jav? Like I can look back on my life, and there's 2 or 3 major events that at the time I thought were terrible. Like I was so upset. I'll give you one example. When I left the big law firm I started at, I tried to get a job at a very small law firm, which I thought I was a shoo-in for, and I did not get it. I was so upset about it. But looking back on that is probably one of the best things that ever happened to me in my life, because had I got that job, I would not have met my current law partner, who's one of the best people I've ever met in my life. I wouldn't have the firm I have now. And so isn't that funny how sometimes, I think that's really interesting how you say that. Sometimes the worst things that happen to you, or what seem like the worst things that happen to you, turn out to be some of the best things that happen to you.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit, because I know there'll be a lot of people interested in your cowboying. So tell us a little bit about what it was like because I think weren't you a competitive roper at some point?
Yeah, I was a team roper. My brother and my brother was a header, I was a heeler, and we rode calves. We did TYRA circuit, YRA, AJRA. It was great. I love horses. Obviously, I love animals in general, and it was a great way to keep. My old man kept us out of trouble, and it taught us responsibility and gave us something to do, and gave us a competitive spirit in terms of making the rounds and doing the circuit and rodeo. I started riding. I actually started barrel racing because the our roping coach at the time was like, you've got to be a good horseman first.
Yeah.
So I used to go to the sheriff's posse in Edinburgh, Texas, every Friday night. And I had this horse, his name was Rojo, which means obviously red. And he was like a 16-year-old horse. He wasn't very fast, but he was very docile and gentle. And that's how I learned when I was about 6 years old how to ride barrels, and became pretty good on a horse and a horseback. And then eventually got into calf roping. And my dad built an arena out in the ranch for us. My brother and I would wake up in the morning and rope, go to school, come back and rope pretty much until the sun went down. And then at one point, my old man got us, some lights, so we'd rope till wee hours in the morning.
Nice.
It was something I really loved. I loved traveling. I loved taking care of the horses. I love the competitive nature of it. I was roping with guys like Cody O, who's an all-around world champion cowboy, to Blair Burt, to a lot of these guys. And so it was a great competitive environment, but at the same time, it taught us a lot of discipline and responsibility that I think is important in your formative years. And eventually, I basically wanted to be like the Latino man from Snowy River. And I told my old man that I wanted to be, I told him that I wanted to be a professional cowboy. And he's, you're out of your mind, you're going to get an education. And once again, my dreams were crushed, even though he did the right thing at the time.
For sure. For sure. And one of the things that people that don't know a lot about rodeo, maybe they don't appreciate, is like the different events in the rodeo, by and large, are designed to mimic what cowboys would actually do when they were actually out there cowboying.
Right.
So this is not, it's turned, the rodeo now is more of a demonstration of cowboy skills, but these were practical skills that people were actually using when they were doing ranching for real, right?
That's right, which I did a lot of, by the way. My grandfather we had about 200 head of Black Angus cows.
Yeah.
And we would work cattle on horseback. We would brand cattle and build fences. And so I've been on horseback, like I said, since I was a kid. And that's the one thing I miss about having moved out here, being out here now 19 years, is like not being able to ride. There are certainly places out here that you can find areas to ride and equestrian stables and stuff. But I've got to get back to the ranch, like I said, when we started this conversation. Too much big city for this country boy.
Exactly. Yeah. So you grow up in a well-respected Hispanic family in South Texas. You're a rancher, you're a cowboy, you were a high-level football player, and then you end up going, do you go straight to A&M after you graduate from high school?
Yeah, so the first school I got accepted to was the University of Texas, and one of my dear friends, Brandon Henderson, who is still a dear friend to this day, who grew up in McAllen. You obviously know the Hendersons. I'm sure you know Chris.
Sure, very well.
Jimmy, so he was like, "Hey, man, you got to go into A&M and be my roommate and join this Corps of Cadets." my brother's the first sergeant. It'll be fun. It'll be cool. And so I was like, "What the hell?" So I ended up. That's how I ended up going to A&M, ironically. And had I not gone to Aggie Land, truth be told, I wouldn't be out here and in this business, which is crazy,
and that's what I want to get to that here in a second, because how a guy from South Texas who's a rancher and a football player and then goes to A&M and joins the Corps of Cadets, ends up in Hollywood, I think is a really interesting story. So you end up going to A&M, you're in the Corps of Cadets. That's where you and I met. We've known each other for 25 plus years. And then you go to law school after you graduate?
No, so honestly, this business really found me at Aggie Land when we had the opportunity on Courage Under Fire.
Yeah.
And I'd never been on a movie set before in my life. And I was just very taken by the experience, interfacing with these actors and the director and Denzel Washington and Meg Ryan. And that's where I got the glint in my eye, on that fire in my belly. And I was like, wow, this is cool. People can actually, you can make movies for a living. And I was very fascinated by it. So that's where the seed started for me. Was at Aggie Land, of all places. And I ended up graduating after that, obviously with a degree in ag development. And I didn't want to go home and be a farmer, even though I loved farming and I had a lot of respect for my grandfather. He was a very successful farmer, and I have a lot of respect for farmers, but it just wasn't something that I was super passionate about. And that film experience really still stuck with me. And I remember telling some buddies of mine at Aggie Land, after that experience, I was like, man, I'm gonna get in the movie business. I'm gonna move to Hollywood. They thought it was crazy. They thought it was nuts. They probably still think I'm nuts, but
Yeah. So I think it's fair to say that both of us were in the core. The idea of going to Hollywood you would have gotten a little bit of grief for that, to say the very least.
absolutely. Right? And so that's how I got, like I said, kind of this fire in my belly to want to get in the movie business was at Aggieland, working on that film, and graduated degree in ag development. I was like, what the hell? I'll go and get a law degree, and I thought it'd be a good degree to have, and it would give me some time to figure out how to get in the movie business. And so ended up getting accepted to St. Mary's, which is probably the only school that would take me at the time. And honestly, I spent more time, Brian, studying film at St. Mary's. I'm not even sure how I ended up graduating.
So when you say you got the bug at A&M, I mean, you really got the bug. You were, once you did this, once it had captured your attention, it sounds like you were pretty obsessed with it in a way.
I was. Right? Yeah. I was like, this is what I want to do.